All right, guys, I really need your help. We need to identify who on earth made this guitar. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I mean, seriously, who made this guitar? Was it Fender? Was it Gretsch? Oh, maybe it just might be ESP. Nah, it's probably Gibson. Look at this monstrosity that the Guitar House of Tulsa has found here. They're advertising it as a circa 1994 Gibson NAMM Les Paul. Now, I personally call this one the Gibson Les Paul, for obvious reasons, but let's check this thing out. So, it has a beautiful two-piece figured maple top. Like, that is insane figuring going on here. It's not like normal flame. It's not quite like quilt either. It's just somewhere in between. You've got some diagonal figuring going on here. This thing just really comes to life in the light. But besides two humbuckers, ABR1 bridge, regular stop bar tailpiece, regular controls and whatnot, you're going to notice that this has Gibson on it. Now, is that a decal? No, it's a actual hole. They've cut a top. So this is the Gibson hole instead of like an F hole or any other Trini Lopez-like sound hole. So that tells me this is some sort of like a semi-hollow Les Paul, at least chambered out in this area. But if we really zoom in here, you can kind of see like something going on. What is that? It's lights. It lights up and says Gibson. There's like some little red LEDs in there or something like that. And you can turn that light on and off by using one of the tone pots. What a ridiculous guitar, and we're not even done yet. Let's move on to where it gets its name, the Gibson Les Paul. Just in case you are the brand's biggest fan and you need the name everywhere on your guitar, here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You get the idea, roughly like 30, 35 times on the fretboard. Now, I think it's a big missed opportunity that they should have just had it all over the headstocks too. Hey, how about we put one of the Epiphone style truss rod covers on here that says Gibson? How about instead of Les Paul model, we call it the Gibson model and just put a giant mother of pearl Gibson in the center there too. This thing is so ridiculous. And this is where I pose the question, who on earth is this guitar for? You would have to be the biggest fan of this brand to even want this monstrosity. And that's why I offered them $8,000 for it. Like, I could see this going great in any, like, guitar store that sells Gibsons. Like, hey, we buy and sell Gibsons here. Look at this thing that says Gibson, which seems to be its current situation here. Or a big fan of the brand, or somebody who's running, like, a guitar museum, which is exactly why I wanted this piece. Because, yeah, who wouldn't want to come see the Gibson guitar at the Gibson Museum? Because outside of review and demo purposes, yeah, I probably wouldn't own this on my own if I wasn't planning on that whole museum thing, right? Because it's just a little bit ridiculous. But let's check out the back. It's just kind of a nice dark cherry color, almost dark back, but a bit brighter than that. Looks like you might have some light figuring within the mahogany, but no additional Gibsons back here. Kind of a missed opportunity not to have one of those Gibson plates back here. And as far as our headstock goes, looks like just labeled Gibson Custom Shop CS9271. Okay, so you're probably curious, what is this thing? Unfortunately, this is not a 1994. If that was a 94, I just would have bought it, because that's the first full year of the Gibson Custom Shop, which would have meant Tom Murphy might have been involved with it, and it would just be so iconic and historic in that aspect. However, our serial number actually tells us it was made in 1999, so it's still cool, you know, before the new millennium. But besides that, there's not a lot of cool factors for that. But apparently, this was designed to be a NAMM show display piece to show off Gibson's new CAD technology so they can put, you know, anything on the fretboard that you want. So technically, we could group this in with the promotional guitars of the late 90s, early 90s, but this is the Gibson Promotional Gibson Les Paul. That's why I love it, and it's so ridiculous, and I offered as much as I did. But you've got things like the Donzi Les Paul, the Playboy Bunny guitar, you've got the NASCAR car guitars. Like, this was showing what they could do for that whole stuff. Now, I believe some of those promotional things came out before this one, but it was just maybe to show brands what they could do if they wanted Donzi all over the guitar or something. So it's kind of cool in a historical aspect like that, but they're saying it's a thin line construction, which I would love to see the guts of this thing, because I'm guessing this probably is built very similar to like a Les Paul Elegant, where it's chambered out rather than just this side being chambered, because those things were out at this time, so it could just be like a custom shop Les Paul elegant. That didn't have the fancy logo on the top, and this one has a bit more reissue style specs with the ABR1 bridge. The weight seems to line up for about what those things would normally weigh too, on a heavier one anyways. So unfortunately, that is just going to remain a mystery. My offer was not accepted, and now that I've talked about it on my show, I don't even know if I want to buy it anymore, because I was going to save it for a review and demo, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But what a cool piece of Gibson history here, even if it's not very traditional. But since we've got some time left tonight, let's see what else the Guitar House of Tulsa is selling. This is an actual physical store. You can actually see the Gibson Les Paul up here. And they've just got a whole bunch of stuff. Like you've got the Hendrix SG right here. There was a TAC Matsumoto we had just missed. You got a couple of Fenders and SGs on here. I mean, this seems to be a very well-stocked store for the stuff that I kind of like anyways. But as far as what was listed on the Reverb shop, they have a very interesting The Paul here from 1979. So their leading photo is, interestingly enough, the backside of it, and they're showing you some of the wear and tear on it. And you might just be going, okay, well, what's so special about this? It's just the Paul. It seems to be in pretty good shape, a gloss variant, in fact. Just in case you didn't know, these things start at life as satin, so this might actually be some sort of a deluxe model. It definitely has a later chainsaw case, but look at the headstock. It's all black, and look at that tiny Gibson logo. It reminds me of some of the variations of the Sonics. Now, I do believe I've seen that once or twice before, so if you're in the market for a rare logo The Paul, that might be it, but definitely do a blacklight test just to verify. I can't quite make out the serial number, but it looks like maybe late 79, so this is probably one of the very early The Paul Deluxe, would have to be my guess on this. Next up, we have one of those Georges St. Pierre's. We had just recently reviewed and documented one of these. I featured this guitar in it as one of the ugly ones, but this one has like a interesting rose thorn vibe going on. I feel like this one would be good in like a heavier band. It kind of reminds me of the Yu-Gi-Oh card, Rose Spectre of Dun. You've got this weird swamp lady with the rose and thorns. So when you look at them side by side, you kind of see what I'm talking about. I was tempted to purchase this one and feature it side by side in that review and demo, but ultimately I decided I don't like it enough to buy it, unfortunately. But here's a good example of where you can actually see his signature better versus my golden paisley one. That's kind of hard to see that, but that's another interesting example there. But hey, check this out. I didn't even realize Fender did this in the mid-90s. You've got a custom shop set of Carina Telecasters and Stratocasters in a double Strat here. What a crazy find on that. Like, I thought the whole double neck Fenders were kind of new, and I just saw a couple of them come out of the custom shop a few years ago. But this one, a complete set of beautiful limba wood on these things. Like, I bet these things really come to life in person. Oh my goodness, Fender Mother of Pearl logo, love it. That is awesome. I love the way it's aged too. Let's see, did they do that for the Telecaster too? Yes, indeed-a-Rudy, they did. I think the Stratocaster got better wood, but it's still pretty nice. But now they've got me really curious on this thing. I mean, you don't see a Les Paul style toggle switch on a Stratocaster every day. You still have your blade style one right here, but that's to switch between your necks, I would imagine. But nice. This one even has the Mother of Pearl too. I wish Fender would do that more often. I know it's not within their historical realm of things to do that, but it looks so fancy. And that's a lot of springs and a whole lot of barrel saddles as well. So how much do you think this beautiful set is? I'd probably guess like, what, 50,000 because it's crazy. And I'm not that far off, 35,000. Next up, they've got one of these Jackson Roswell Rhodes at 8,500. I mean, these things, they vary in price depending on how many are on the market. I actually do have a review and demo of one of these on the show if you want to learn more about them, but I was only able to document that because a viewer of the show had sent it in. Generally, I don't accept viewer guitars because there's just too much that can go wrong in the shipping and the documentation process that it's just not worth it unless it's a super rare guitar. And that was one of those times is like, okay, I accept your generous offer. They also have one of the Epiphone Spirits. You can check out this review and demo if you need to know more about them, but essentially this guitar right here was first birthed under the Epiphone branding. But not just any Epiphone, it was Epiphone USA. When these things didn't sell too well, some of them actually just got the Gibson logos printed on top of the Epiphone one. Those are really cool. But then they were redone as a Gibson thing, and then they were a little bit more popular. Epiphone racism was a thing back then. But I wanted to show you guys this one because look at that top. That's one of the nicest Spirit tops I've ever seen. That's a nice waviness going on. Now these are more so veneer tops. Like they're not tiny thin tops, but it's not a full 1/4 inch top or anything like that. I think if I remember correctly, it was about 1/8 of an inch, but that one is a 1-piecer. But like many of these, suffers from some finish checking. Now this is a pretty extreme example. Most of them don't get quite that bad. But you can also see this thing is heavily aged as far as the lacquer goes. Like you can see the chips in the finish right here that really show how white that binding was and how playing in the bars for this one definitely made that get ambered over. Because you see that finish checking on the back, you see it on the front by the logo. It's just all over on this poor thing. And the last one I wanted to share that I thought was cool in their inventory was this gem, a 20th anniversary from 2007. It's like a clear acrylic material, and then they've got a little bit of paint splattered in there. But it glows green. I'm sure most people would like this better than the Gibson Les Paul in terms of lighting up in the dark. But what really made me fall in love with this one, I like the tuner tips. They're just interesting. You've got your regular gem colors hidden within here. Kind of makes me wish they would have done something a little bit more special for the neck, because everything else is pretty sweet on that thing. So, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning about the Gibson Les Paul, and we will see you guys tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.